we would like to welcome you to a very exciting interview that we're going to have with Mark and Rita Woodman. I know that many of you watching Eden Life channel has had quite a few questions regarding Mark's current condition with living with cancer, and quite a few other questions that we receive on a daily basis on our info@edenlifeministries.co.za email. Welcome, Mark. Welcome, Rita. Very excited to have you here.
Lovely to be here.
I would like to have the opportunity to, before we get into the cancer situation that you're experiencing at the moment, to just ask you a few questions regarding your walk with the Lord. I think that for me is the point that we need to start at. I know that when I met you in 2005, that you were a very passionate young man at that stage, wanting to do God's work. And I know that God has really taken both of you on quite a roller coaster ride, spiritually, as well as just, life happening. Mark, why did you choose to become an evangelist? Why was that your drive? Why do you think God gave you that calling?
Well, I think the important thing to understand is that when you met us in 2005, we had already been through quite an intense process. Rita and I, she grew up in the Dutch Reformed Church. I grew up in the New Apostolic Church. And by the way, for those New Apostolics, an evangelist in the New Apostolic Church and an evangelist, what I am now, is completely different. So, but when we were married, Rita became a New Apostolic, and we continued on with New Apostolic life as you do. And I started to ask some questions, and I wasn't able to get the answers to the questions that I was asking, and it was a little bit difficult because I went higher and higher in the organization to get the answers to the questions that I had. And I had at the one stage, I had a bishop that came to visit us at our home, and I gave him lists of points that I wanted to show him from the Bible, and his answer to me was, I don't know the Bible, I don't understand so much about the Bible as you do, but don't ask too many questions, just believe.
Sure.
And I said, but where's the basis then of truth? What do you use as your common point of communication? Because if it's not going to be the Bible, then it's I think and you think. Anyway, so when I wasn't able to get the answers that I was looking for, my wife Rita and I decided to leave the church and to search for truth, whatever truth would be. And we went off on a journey of what we now pretty much recognize as enlightenment. Like the New Age calls it, this illumination, the enlightenment. But it was more an experience of searching for truth, unknown truth, and delving into things that were taboo beforehand. So I started to get involved in the deeper things of the New Age movement. And to cut a very long story quite short, Rita got involved eventually in the healing methods of the New Age movement. She's always been involved in healing and helping people and trying to, create a better life for other people. So she got involved in things like crystal healing and energy healing, etc., etc. I went through, in the New Age, I wrote that book, the Personal Purpose book as well, but I went from there deeper and deeper, still searching for truth. I had two questions. I wanted to find the truth, and I wanted to know who God was. Because one of the questions I asked the leadership is there any difference between Allah and Buddha? And is there any difference between Buddha and Jesus? Never mind Sakagaya and Jain and all the others. Why don't we worship Buddha? Why do we go to a Christian church and worship Jesus? Is there any difference? And they couldn't answer. So I wanted to know who is God, and I wanted to know what the truth is about his religious or belief system that he teaches. And that led me very deep into the occult. and into reincarnation and past life experiences and traveling to other areas of the universe and different dimensions, etc., etc., which is very, very dangerous stuff to get involved in now that we've come out of it and we look back and we realize the deceptions involved there. So that whole process we had been through, and then Rieta was actually, you were 8 months pregnant, at the time, and I'd left my career as in the IT industry, and I started a public speaking career. And I'd spent time with the leading figures around the world like Richard Branson and very real big important people, and I was implementing their strategies, like Anthony Robbins, this wonderful success coach, supposedly wonderful success coach. I was implementing all their strategies into my life, and yet I didn't seem to have the success that they say you can achieve. And we got to the point where Rieta was 8 months pregnant with our first child, Lauren, and we had no food in the house. I was a public speaker, I traveled quite extensively, and yet I was unable to create an income out of my speaking. It was the weirdest thing. I had all the contacts, I had all the information, I just couldn't create an income from it. It was as if something was blocking it. And 3 o'clock that Saturday morning, I remember falling on my knees in the lounge and saying, I still don't know who you are. I don't know if you're Shiva or Buddha or Sokagai or Jain or Jesus or Lucifer or Satan or whoever you are, but there must be one of you that's more powerful than all the others. And I need your help because I don't have food for my family. And obviously nothing happened. You expect the lightning to come and frizzle you, and nothing happened, and there was just this dead silence. And I got really bitter in my heart, and I said, that's typical of you. You, whoever you call yourself, this God guy. And I said, I'll figure this out myself. And about 18 months before that moment, somebody had given me a set of DVDs. Unfortunately, by some Christian guy, so he wasn't as enlightened as I was at that stage. But he was a professor, so he might know one or two things. And I put his DVDs in at 3 o'clock that morning. I think it was still number 5, The Revelation of Jesus Christ. And it explained how the Revelation has been written in a chiastic structure that proves that Revelation cannot be a humanly inspired book. And I thought, but that's fascinating. I've never heard of a chiasm.
It's like the fingerprint of God in the Bible.
It's the signature, yes. The X marks the spot.
That's
it's the most amazing thing. And I said, but I didn't know that before. And that was hard to swallow because I had so much knowledge, And then I put the next DVD in, and the next DVD, and the next DVD, and so together we worked through the information, and we came to the realization, but hold on a second, Jesus actually is God. And finally I had scientific proof, and I had biblical proof, and I had extra biblical proof, and you could, in a heartbeat, you can show the difference between Buddha and Shiva, and you can show the difference between Allah and Jesus. It was so exciting. The answers that I'd been searching for were there. And one of the things we discovered along the way was the truth of the Sabbath, and how God has embedded that truth, and not only that truth, but the sanctuary truth, into the Seventh-day Adventist system. And we, in 2005, we were baptized into the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and that's when we met you. So that whole process had happened by the time we were so eager and excited, because I'd realized by then that I had been a public speaker for the devil's system. I was one of his generals, and as a New Age occultist, and now to be able to turn that and go and speak against everything I'd spoken for, and finally have proof to be able to explain to people, because that's the biggest problem in the New Age, is you don't have proof. It's just hypnotize yourself, or go into meditation and experience. And did you see the angels there? And you sort of say, yeah, I think I saw them. And it's not, give me the information and prove it to me. And now we have that. And so exciting. And that's why we were so eager and so fervent in our desire to work for the Lord. And He pulled us out that morning. I can't remember what we had for breakfast, but that morning we did have breakfast. Little miracles started to happen where I would go to the car to see if there's any money under the mat, like a little 5 rand or something. And there would be nothing, and then I'd go back an hour later just to check again, maybe I missed something, and then there'd be a 20 rand lying on the back seat.
Wow.
So little things happened, and we could see that the hand of leading and the hand of guidance was leading us to study deeper and deeper and deeper into the Bible. And yeah, that's sort of the background, and the depth of the deception that we were in led us to put ourselves 100% into the depth of the answers to those deceptions. And that's why a public speaker in Christian terms would be an evangelist. Someone that goes out, like John the Baptist, goes out and preaches against false and for the truth. And so I realized that was my calling, and that was the decision that we made then to start that process.
Isn't it wonderful how the Lord actually uses our learning school out there in the world and turns that around, and then He uses it to His glory?
It's amazing.
So if you didn't have those experiences, if He didn't give you the talents that He did give you at that time to be able to do public speaking, and the contacts that you had at that time, you maybe would never have been in the situation of becoming an evangelist.
And also, I mean, the stuff that we went through together, it's been wonderful. We went together to the New Apostolic Church. We left the church together. We went into the New Age together. We came out of the New Age together. We were baptized together, and we're doing evangelistic work together. The whole process has been together. And yet, because of what I've been through, I'm able to answer some very difficult questions. Where even in the Adventist environment, where you have so much knowledge available and so much, you can ask basically any question you want and the answers are there. Many people have not been in that environment, so I'm able to explain to other people why and why not, etc. And it's wonderful to see how the Lord brings that with you. You don't cut off your past, you bring your past with you, and He builds on that so that you can serve Him.
That is so powerful.
It's a fantastic experience.
Now, Tommy, how did it affect your relationship once you started making that decision through what the Holy Spirit was pushing on your heart, that you need to go out there and actively start preaching and telling people about this wonderful truth that you discovered? How did that change within yourself start affecting your relationship? Because you mentioned that, Rieta, you had all kinds of healing therapies that you were involved in. So obviously your relationship must have been a very different one prior to the time that you made that decision to follow the Lord. How did it change after the choice you made for the Lord?
I think it deepened quite a lot. If you throughout our marriage, we've always had a very close relationship, and we shared most of the things. We supported each other 100% in doing it. But once you make a decision like that, you realize that your whole life is going to change. Your focus changes. The way you see your family changes. Everything, it impacts absolutely everything. So in a lot of ways, I think our relationship was deepened, and the Lord really strengthened us, because with Mark traveling a lot, it means that a lot of responsibilities comes down on me, and we have to support each other and fill each other's roles. I have to become a daddy and a mommy when he's gone, and when he comes back, I have to be just the mommy again. So it needs a lot of coordination between us, and we have to be on the same level all the time of thinking. And with that, I must say the Lord has really blessed us. He really, I think, almost inspired us to go to the next level in our marriage, in our relationship.
And also we really have been through very deep waters prior to our decision to accept Christianity as the truth and to chase it and push it and spread it. But we together have been through very, very deep waters and very dark waters. And that process has driven us together. You know, there's only two options. It's either going to separate you and break your marriage, or it's going to make your marriage and bring you together. And that's what it did. It really made our marriage. And through those experiences as well, our marriage has been able to stand the incredible pressure since I've started to travel so much. And had we not, I believe, had the background, we wouldn't have been able to cope as easily with the changes and the developments afterwards.
But definitely, yeah.
What have you learned the most about yourself in this walk that you have walked with the Lord from the time you decided to follow Him actively? You know, one goes through a process where you think you know yourself quite well, and then God places you in a situation where you have to trust completely on Him, and you don't always have the answers. Because it sounds to me like you had all the answers prior, or so you thought. And now you're placed in this situation where this truth is revealed to you. However, it's a step in faith every single second of the day. What did you learn the most about yourself going through this whole spiritual experience?
That I have to learn self-control. I've had, since I was a little boy, I've had a vicious temper, and it's so easy to channel that temper into energy for the Lord's work. But that doesn't mean you have self-control. That means you're channeling the problem. The things that we all have in our background, the skeletons in the closet, have led me to realize that I really am pathetic. I'm a miserable specimen. If you want to compare me and my character to the character of Christ, I'm totally pathetic. And that has given me the opportunity to rely on Him. Especially when I travel, there's sometimes on one trip I can see maybe 2,000 or 3,000 people at a time. And they hang on to your lips, and you have this risk, a real danger of thinking that you are actually now becoming somebody. But having been through what we've been through, it's helped me to remain humble and to know that no matter what the people might think, I'm actually pretty pathetic. And although the Lord has given me some understanding and some knowledge, I have absolutely no right to think that I'm anything special. And in fact, as Paul says, I'm the least of the servants, and I'm the worst of the sinners. You know, that's been my biggest experience. What for you?
For me, I think it's been the realization that I'm a lot stronger than I used to think I am. But in the same time, I'm a lot weaker than I think I am. It's very contradictory, but the Lord has proven to me that if He gives you the strength, you truly can accomplish anything that you need to accomplish. Not necessarily that you want to accomplish, that you need to accomplish. But in the same vein, I'm very weak, but the Lord is my strength. Me and myself cannot achieve anything, but the Lord is the strength that strengthens me in every situation that I need to be, that I need to do, and that I have to conquer. I think that's been my biggest realization. Yeah.
God is so good. And before we start moving into the health side of your life at the moment, what biggest misconception do you think people have about you, Mark?
Let me ask Greta to answer that, and then I'll answer. What do you think?
I think a lot of people see Mark as a smooth and slick go-getter type person who is out there to prove himself and to get attention and things like that. And the Mark I know is a little farm boykie. You know, you'll see on some of the photos that we'll show you, he loves khaki clothes with a bush hat on his head and being in the veld. That is who Mark really is. That's where he's at home. That's where he's peaceful. And it's a different Mark than the one that's on stage, the one that's presenting and that's talking to people about the Lord.
I think that's well put, and I pass that question on to her because she knows me better than I know myself, and in many ways. But I think the biggest misconception that people have is that I'm out to prove something. And in a way they're right, but in a way they're wrong. I'm not out to prove anyone incorrect. I'm out to prove Jesus correct. And my focus is not on anything besides helping others to find biblical answers to the truth. So, having started a ministry and having had that ministry grow to where it is at the moment, people think I'm an entrepreneur, and they think that I'm in it to make money, and they think, all these silly things, because they see the glamorous mark on the TV and being broadcast all over, and they see the glamorous mark that travels all over the world, but they don't understand that when you're 6'5" and you have to sit in an aeroplane for 23 hours in cattle class, it's not glamorous. I love nature, I love the bush, I love peace, I love quiet, I love music, I love my family, and that's who I am right in the core of my being. And the rest of the stuff is what I've accepted to do in order to go and help others find the truth. But that's not me. I think the misconception is that that's me. Meantime, this is me.
All right. Thank you for that. I want to ask you, you have had quite a challenge that you have to deal with on a daily basis for the past 6 months. And you started feeling not so well. Some health issues started occurring. And then you went to the doctor and you got very, very bad news. I want you to please explain to us, what was that moment like when you were sitting in the rooms I would like you to please explain to us what that moment felt like when you were sitting in the room of that doctor and he told you that you've got cancer.
So now, I think what I need to do is I need to give background before I answer that question, because that question, I can't explain. It's like saying to somebody, if you've been raped, it's like me coming to you and saying, oh, I understand what you're going through. I will never understand what you're going through or what you've been through. So for me to try and explain to someone what we went through is very difficult. So I think I must just give the background. The New Age believes in vegetarianism and, if possible, veganism. They believe that, and all the leaders of the New Age and the top Masons around the world, etc., are vegans, especially in the hierarchy of the Catholic system as well. Many of the Jesuit leaders are vegans, and the reason for that is they understand the impact of diet on the clarity of their thinking, and the frontal lobe specifically. That whatever you take in affects your ability to communicate with your Lord. With the Lord, we communicate through our frontal lobe with the Lord. That is the seat of intelligence. When you pray, you communicate with Him through the frontal lobe. So your diet affects your thinking and the clarity of your brain. So what the New Age does is it teaches veganism to clear your mind, to have clarity in your thinking, and to have your brain working clearly, so that when you drop down the frontal lobe, that your midbrain can be open and active and can be receptive to things like hypnotism, etc., etc., or I beg your pardon, not hypnotism, meditation, to the voices of the universe and the audible things that you need to listen to. So when we were in the New Age, we changed our diet towards vegetarianism and then eventually veganism. When we became Christians, we realized that from the time of Adam and Eve failed on diet. Esau failed on diet. Noah failed on alcohol, on diet. You go through the Exodus, Israel, when the Lord pulled them or called them out of Egypt, He gave them an obedience and a diet message, and they rebelled against it, and then they went against this whole idea, and eventually He said, I'll send you quails till they come out of your nose, because one of the things the Lord had taken away was meat. He's trying to lead His people always back to a vegan or a plant-based diet. And if you read Daniel 1, I think that's the clearest example of how you can be 10 times better off than if you, just by changing diet. Anyway, so when we became Christians, we continued with that lifestyle, but we became more and more serious with it because we realized that that's part of the teachings of the church and also of the Bible, and we started to study that. That was Rita's focus, continued from where she was in the New Age. And looking back now, that is what has kept me alive. Because we've worked out that approximately, if we look at the sores on my legs and the things that happen, how long have I been carrying the cancer?
At least 4 years.
At least 4 years. So around 2005, 2006, I must have already had the cancer. When you study cancer, you can see it. Your body gives certain indicators, which we didn't know at the time. And 2006, 7, 8, and 9, I traveled extensively. I was 2 weeks at home, 2 weeks abroad, 2 weeks at home, 2 weeks traveling, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. And I had an incredibly strenuous program. When I traveled, I pushed in as much as I could for the congregations where I was. I would land, say, in Australia on Thursday, and I would start on Friday evening. The whole of Saturday we would present the entire day, and it would be Friday evening, Saturday evening as well, Sunday right through to the next Friday evening, the whole of Saturday again, and Sunday I would fly out to the next place. And I wouldn't have been able to maintain that incredibly strenuous schedule had it not been for the lifestyle that I had. But eventually it caught up with me. And I was in Australia and New Zealand in August of 2009. And just before that, I went to Marius, who was in the ministry at the time, and I said to him, I have a feeling that the Lord is asking me to step back from the ministry. I don't know why, but I just have this conviction that the Lord is asking me just to step back from the ministry, and I have to hand the ministry to somebody, and there's no one else, so please, can I give you the ministry to look after while I'm stepping back? And that was probably May, June, before I started traveling again. And then July I traveled, and August I traveled. And around June, July, when I was busy doing something strenuous, I noticed that a portion of my eyesight went missing. It was like a sort of from the diagonal top right to bottom left, that this top portion, about 20% of it, or the bottom portion at least, the bottom portion disappeared. So I only had this area of vision in both eyes. So I realized, but that must be a brain thing, it can't be an eye thing, or probably not an eye thing. And that happened a couple of times, and I wasn't really sure what it was. I told Morris about it, and obviously spoke to Rita about it, and then we weren't quite sure what to make of it. But then when I was in Australia and New Zealand, it happened about 4 or 5 times. And also once when I was there, I was playing tennis with a friend of mine, and I didn't want to tell him about it to make him concerned, but I went for the ball and the ball disappeared, and I was swatting mid-air, and I realized here's a big problem. And obviously I missed the ball entirely, and when I came back I told Rita about it as well, and then I was mowing the lawn, and I realized I didn't have the same strength I had previously. Normally I mow the lawn, I'm almost running with the lawnmower, and I'm very excitable person, so I'm always busy. And I didn't have that same strength. I had to rest regularly, and then while I was pushing the lawnmower, all of a sudden my eyesight disappeared again, a portion of it, but this time about, I'd say almost 60% went black. This entire area in my vision went black. And I sat down, and it stayed gone for about 45 minutes. And I spoke to Rita, and we then together decided I better go to this doctor and just find out what it is. And I went to a normal GP, and this was early September 2009. And he looked in my eyes to see if there was retinal disconnect or whatever. And he said, no, it's not anything to do with the physical eye, not that he can see. So he'll send me to a neurosurgeon, who we then went to in George on the 11th of September. And he looked, I explained to him what it was and that I was getting blackouts. And he asked me about my history, and I told him I'd had a bicycle accident when I was younger and that it hurt my neck. And he said he really doesn't think it's anything. He thinks that it's just a limited blood flow to the brain through this bicycle accident I had. But just in case, he'll send me for an MRI, which is a brain scan, where they chop your brain into little slices, like on the scan, and they can see what's going on inside the brain. So I said, fine, and we went through. A number of miracles happened because I wasn't able to see that specialist. And I phoned the doctor back and I said, I have to see him urgently. And then all of a sudden, he was available the next day, which was an absolute miracle because they'd booked us, about 3 weeks or 4 weeks later. And this vision thing had become quite bad. And all of a sudden, we could see him the next day. When I saw him, he said, no, I must go for an MRI. And I have to book that MRI, and that normally takes about 2 weeks. But he'll phone and see what he can arrange. And he phoned, and they said, if I come immediately, they can fit me in, which is another miracle. But the costs are prohibitive. It's 7,000 or 9,000 rand or something just to have the scan done. So he said he'll see what he can do, and he phoned the superintendent of the hospital, and the superintendent said, not a problem, we'll pay for everything. The specialist and the MRI will pay for everything. So that was covered. It was just miracles after miracle after miracle. The doors were opening, and we realized, okay, something's happening here. So I went down with Rita for the scan, and I lay on the bed, and they pushed me in, and they pushed me out, and there's sort of like where this MRI thing is, this tunnel that you go into. Then there's a window, and that's where they got all the computers, and then there's a waiting room behind the window. And Rita was in that waiting room, looking through the window at the computer screens. And she could see what was going on. And she saw there's something on the brain. Now, I had no idea. I was lying in the tunnel listening to the music and, quite happy. And they push you in and they pull you out. And I thought I was finished. And then all of a sudden, when I looked up, the senior partner of this radiography firm was standing next to me as a doctor. And I thought, you don't come down unless there's a big problem. And he said to me, I need to inject you with some colorant, iodine or some radioactive substance, which comes up on the screen. So I said, okay, and I stuck it in and pushed me back in, and afterwards we went and we got the scans, and we looked at the scans. We saw that in the brain there were 2 tumors, and that they were both bleeding, and that there was huge swelling around those tumors. You'll see in the images, which we'll put in for the audience, you'll see these white streaks going up. That was the swelling, and that was what was causing, because it was in the occipital lobe, which is at the back of the brain, causing pressure on the visual area. That was why I was having these problems. Now, I'm a pretty positive guy, so I knew that 2 tumors in the brain I could beat. There were certain things I'd have to do and change, etc. But there were tumors. There were 2 tumors. I could fight that. So we took the scans, back to the neurosurgeon, and he looked at the scans, and in his experience he said, these are not primary tumors, these are secondary tumors. I said, well, what is a secondary tumor? I mean, I have no idea about this stuff. And it turns out that cancer, wherever the cancer decides to grow first, that's called the primary site. And it's like if you were to travel to London, you'd still be called Sanel. And if you go from London to Cairo, you'd still be called Sanel. And from Cairo to Australia, it'd still be called Sanel. So whatever your primary cancer that you have, when it travels to another area of your body, it's still got the same identity, even though it might be in the lung or in the brain, it's still the same identity as the initial one. So he said, because these tumors are bleeding, it doesn't look very likely that these are primary tumors. And that was the shock, because that means there must be cancer somewhere else. And he also didn't know if it was cancer, but it looked like cancer to him. And he said there must be then other areas of the body. So what I have to do is I have to go back down, and they're going to do a CT scan, which was a whole abdomen scan. And that also, the costs are exorbitant. So he phoned the superintendent again, and the superintendent said, no, it's all covered, no problems. Again, just miracles were incredible. And we went down, it was Friday evening, the 11th of September, I'll never forget it, our own private September 11th. They pushed me into this tunnel, the CT scan tunnel. I drank all their radioactive stuff to show up all the stuff that was going on. And it was late, it was about 7 o'clock in the evening. All the people had gone home from that radiography company. And when the nurse, the radiographer lady, was finished with us, she patted us on the shoulder and she said, it'll be okay. All the best, okay. The doctor's waiting upstairs for you. Now, for a doctor to wait past 7 o'clock on a Friday evening, and for her to tap me on the shoulder and say, it'll be okay, you'll be fine, we realized, man, there must be something wrong. So we went up to the doctor, and all the lights were off except one office, and we went into this office, and here he sat with the scans open on the computer. And he was very solemn, and he said to us, there's a big problem. Those 2 tumors were 2 of 7 tumors that they'd picked up. And the 5 other tumors, they found 2 tumors in the lung, 3 tumors in the lung, and 2 on the adrenal glands, 1 on each adrenal gland. And basically, that is a death sentence. It's an automatic, because in cancer you have different stages. You have stage 1, which is basically when you have just identified the possibility that you have cancer and it's confirmed. Stage 2 is when it metastasizes or it goes to another area of the body. Stage 3 is when stage 2 is when it sort of grows and starts threatening to go to another area of the body. Stage 3 is when it starts spreading to another area of the body, and it has its second and possibly third site. But when you have 7 cancer tumors all over the body, it's stage 4. And stage 4 cancer is very, very difficult to turn around. And I'm 34 years old. I've got a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old. I've got a wife who we've been through such deep waters together with. I mean, it made no sense. Here, I had dedicated my entire life to the Lord, and I said, I don't understand. How's this possible? It makes no sense. And I remember we walked sort of in shock and awe. We walked to the car, and we sat in the car in silence, and my leg was shaking. I was literally like a leaf. It was like I was in total shock. It's like a sugar water situation. After a car accident, I was sitting there in the car just shaking in George, Friday evening, and the worst is I had to phone my mother. And we had to phone her parents. And my diary was booked up through 2010 into 2011 already, and I had to phone all those people, and I had to fly 2 weeks from then, and I had to phone these people and say, sorry, you know, I now have a death sentence. Never mind I have cancer. The magnitude of the cancer that I have, it's so enormous and it's so far spread that basically what the doctor told us is that there's anything between 6 weeks and 6 months from September 11th. And I mean, for me to think I had 6 weeks left was just mind-blowing. It was just everything changes, your entire focus changes, the way you think changes. And we drove home those 2 hours from George, and I mean, what was it like for you that Friday evening?
I think it was really one of the worst days I've ever experienced. Firstly, to drive home was quite tough because we were both crying so much that most of the times, I don't know how I stayed on the road and actually got over the mountain pass was quite a miracle. But I don't know, somehow through the shock and through everything, I just had also this feeling in my heart that we are not alone. And although everything around us and portions of inside us were in turmoil, there was a small portion in my heart that had peace, because I knew the Lord will not let us go through anything if He didn't think that we are strong enough to be able to go through it.
I think that's the key to what happened that Friday evening. And the next morning, when we went to church, the congregation prayed together with us. And we got some beautiful text words that the Lord sent us. Rieta always drives with her Bible in her bag. And we were reading to one another, trying to comfort one another. And we were desperately searching for opportunities to find peace. I think now, just the thought that came to my mind, it must have been like the disciples in the boat with Jesus. Even though He was there, they were thinking they were going to drown. They really were desperate. That's why they went and woke Him up. And I just think to myself, we were like trying to wake the Lord up in our boat. Can't you see what's going on here, And yeah, that week was very hard. Very, very hard. To find out that you have cancer is, I think it's like, for me, it's like being raped. But you don't know who the person is that did it to you, and you don't know when they did it to you, and you don't know how it happened. And it's all of a sudden you have these things inside you that you can't get rid of. They can't cut the adrenal gland, because if you cut the adrenal gland, it's going to throw adrenaline into your body, which is even worse. Like, there were 3 in the lung, they can't cut those out. The 2 in the brain we were going to worry about later. So it's like literally in the space of a couple of hours, our lives were thrown upside down.
What was the conversation that you had with the Lord in that first week? Because here you are, God has taken you on such a fantastic journey where He provided you with knowledge and abilities that you started using for Him eventually, doing the evangelism, spreading God's word. And things look like they're just really, happening. You're able to be used by the Lord in such a dynamic way. And now all of a sudden, it's like all handbrakes are up. What conversations were you having with the Lord in that week? What was, were you angry? Were you content with the fact that, God is in control? What conversation did you have?
Most people would think that I would ask why. I didn't ask why. I knew why. Deep down inside, I knew why. I had worked too hard for too many years. From the IT industry already, through to the New Age, through to Christianity, through to evangelism. I had not listened to my body, and I knew why. So I couldn't ask the Lord, why me, Lord? What have I done? I couldn't do that. The arguments I had with the Lord, and I had arguments with Him. And I said to Him, so what now? What now? I messed up. I knew I messed up. Because cancer is a lifestyle disease. People think you get cancer like a virus. That's a lie. We create our own cancer by eating incorrectly, by living incorrectly, by breaking the 8 laws of health. Maybe we must explain just now what the 8 laws of health are. But if you go against those, or if you break those, then you run the risk of gaining a lifestyle disease, one of which is cancer, which I then now have and had. So my biggest debate was, what now? I have an enormous amount of work to do. I knew that my work wasn't finished. I couldn't look at my children and say, I won't see my son's 2nd birthday. His 2nd birthday was now, what, a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago? And I couldn't believe I wouldn't see it. I just said, it's impossible. I will not accept it. And I don't know how, but so what now? You know, you're going to have to show me how I'm going to have to climb out of this thing. I know He's there, and I knew He was there, and I knew He would stand with us, and I knew He was wanting to help us. But I didn't know how. Because many people think if you change your diet, boom, you know, you shouldn't fall ill. But it's not that. There's 8 laws to health. And it's a holistic perspective. And even if you're keeping those, if the Lord decides for you to get ill, you'll still get ill. It's not like you're going to have some magic formula. But the truths laid out in the Bible are, if you keep my commandments and all my statutes, I will not let the diseases of Egypt come upon you. And I'd let the diseases of Egypt come upon me because I'd broken the statutes of the Lord. So my biggest question was, what now? I've got all this work to do. I've got all these speaking appointments. I've got a ministry to run. I've got 2 beautiful children. I've got a wife who I need to provide for. What now? And the peace that came with that was phenomenal, because specifically I wasn't asking why. Why was a done deal. And yeah, it was just stepping over the feeling sorry for myself. If you can get over feeling sorry for yourself and get over it quickly, then you already have opportunities and options.
Absolutely. I would like you to take us through, firstly, just a bit of a background. You talk about the health ministry and what the whole health ministry is all about in terms of what God has given to us in His Word. But a lot of people may be listening to what you are talking about now. And you're talking about, that cancer is a lifestyle disease. You know, they might be grasping for air when you make statements like that. I would like you just to clarify a little bit for us. What do you mean when you make that statement? And explain to us, where do you get this information from? Why would it be a lifestyle thing, and how does diet specifically fit into that?
Okay. Diet is one aspect of the laws of health as are laid out in the Bible. When the Lord created the heavens and the earth, the sea and all that in them is, He gave mankind and He gave the universe 8 laws of health. He gave us sunlight. He gave us water. He gave us nutrition. When you read Genesis, you find out what the nutrition was that He gave us. It's the fruits and the seeds and the nuts and the grains. the diet then changed later to include herbs, and at the flood it was changed to include meat as well. But that wasn't the will of the Lord for mankind to eat meat. It was otherwise he wouldn't have constantly tried to get mankind back to come off meat. It's been a battle since the beginning of time. But basically the 8 laws of health are laid out in a word called New Start. Excuse me. It's from the tears. New Start is basically nutrition, exercise, water, sunlight, temperance, air, rest, and trust in God. And if you go back to creation and you study creation, you see that, let's start with New Start in the right order. Nutrition was given in the Garden of Eden, the right nutrition for the successful existence of mankind. Fruits, grains, nuts, and seeds, right? That's the nutrition that we should be living off. Then you have exercise. Adam and Eve were to till the soil of the ground. They were supposed to exercise, not sit behind laptops and answer emails. They were supposed to work and physically have exercise. Water was separated and created in the creation process. Sunlight was created in the creation process. And today we are told that sunlight causes cancer, which is actually a huge lie. It's the excess of sunlight that causes some, not even melanoma, that is not often caused by sunlight. But we have to get sunlight. Fluorescent light isn't good enough. You have to be outside, physically working in the garden. That's the healthiest thing. So it's nutrition, exercise, water, sunlight, temperance. That word, I believe, is more accurately termed abstemiousness, which is today not really used anymore in the English language. What it means is it's to abstain from things which are not good for you. In other words, because the body is the temple of the Lord and it doesn't belong to us, we are not supposed to put things into it that don't do good to it. In other words, things that damage the body, we need to abstain from that. We need to have an element of abstemiousness, meaning that no smoking, right? No alcohol. Anything that's not good for the body, abstain from it. And that was taught in the Garden of Eden, where the Lord said, do not eat of that tree because it will not be good for you. So even that teaching was in the Garden of Eden. You then go through, so you got sunlight, temperance or abstemiousness, air. Air was created with the separation of the heavens with the earth and the ozone, etc., all of that. Today we live in buildings and air-conditioned buildings, and we breathe in second-hand air all the time, and when we drive our cars, we close the window, we put the aircon on. We're supposed to be living outside of the cities in fresh air environment, with the belief and the understanding that with the exercise and the working in the sun, that you take deep breaths of fresh air. Then the Lord gave us, in the creation story, He gave us, it was evening and it was morning the first day. It was evening and it was morning the second day. When the sun goes down, that means that we're supposed to be aiming for bed, rest, the second last of the 8 principles of health. If you chase a hen and try and catch a hen during the day, you're going to run your legs off. But as the sun goes down, that hen will go to its perch wherever, and you can literally walk over to it and pick it up and can put it wherever you want it. And that's because there's an activity of melatonin in the brain which happens with the sun going down. When the sun goes down, the body wants to produce melatonin. Melatonin is used to produce the sleep, and in the sleep, your body can recover and fix all the things that are wrong, etc., etc. That's the big one that I broke. I worked through the night repeatedly, etc. I would go to bed at 2 and wake up at 6, etc., etc. Nutrition, exercise, water, sunlight, temperance or abstemiousness, air, rest. And then He gave us the Sabbath day to trust in His power and to trust in His will and to trust in Him and what He wants to do and perform in your life. That's where we get the 8 laws of health, is right from the beginning of Genesis, which the Lord has then pulled all the way through to Revelation, and in his call for his final people to come out and be separate and to stand again, just like Revelation 22, right at the end, the last chapter of the Bible, verse 14 says, "Blessed are they that keep the commandments, that they may have access to the tree of life," which is an inversion of Genesis, because blessed were they not who did not keep the commandments of God, which is why they didn't have access to the tree of life. The whole Bible is written in this beautiful chiastic form. So the 8 laws of health is what the Lord gave us in creation. And today, as we prepare for heaven and to be able to go to heaven, the Lord has brought back again those 8 laws and said, if my people will just keep these 8 laws of health, the diseases of Egypt will not come upon you. So I hope that gives you a bit of background, and it's quite a long explanation, but that gives you then the background to the 8 laws and the decision. The only difference really that happened between the New Age, they don't know about the 8 laws, they know about diet, and Christianity, was that we then realized we need to bring in these other elements and start including those as well to have a full package. And Rieta's obviously deeply involved today in the carrying out of that health message rather than the New Age crystal stuff.
Mark, so now you know that you do have cancer, and you've gone through this whole process of a week of complete agony, trying to deal with it and trying to sort things out with the Lord. But you got a certain diagnosis from the doctor, and it's quite a rare type of cancer that you do have. I would like you just to explain to us a little bit about exactly what the cancer is that you do have. And then Rieta, I would like you then to explain to us exactly from receiving that diagnosis, how did you guys go ahead in terms of treating the cancer?
You can maybe first tell about the adrenal.
What happened after the diagnosis on the 11th of September, there was a period of time which Rieta will explain now, where we went for certain treatments, and during those treatments I started to get tremendous headaches, very, very serious headaches, and in the matter of about 2 days or 3 days I basically became comatose. I was slipping in and out of a coma with these headaches. And what had happened within the space of 10 days is that my eyesight had gone from sometimes coming and going, it disappeared. Literally, where I had that 20% loss previously in the beginning, that diagonal line had increased up to 80%, and I could only see 20%. So I was falling over things. I couldn't read anything. I couldn't read the Bible. I couldn't even walk. I was sort of walking, trying to see out of the corner of my eye, trying to just cope. And while we were busy with the treatments, and while my eyesight had disappeared, which the doctor said was basically permanent, that I wouldn't be able to see again, all of a sudden these headaches started. And they increased so dramatically, I started to be violently ill, throwing up and vomiting from them, etc. And then slipping in and out of a coma made Rieta and the family realize that something drastic had to be done. And it was Thursday evening that Rieta made the decision that I had to be rushed off to Groote Schuur Hospital in Cape Town. And she sat with me through the night, and basically, I don't remember anything from Tuesday. I remember that there was a pastor, I vaguely sort of see a shadow in my mind. He came on Tuesday to pray for me. But from Wednesday onwards, and that Tuesday, it's the only thing I remember, it's all gone. So that Thursday I went into a coma completely, basically, and then Rieta took me off to Groote Schuur and sat me right through the night. She stayed with me in their trauma section, which was a nightmare for her, which obviously I know nothing about. Maybe you can also explain, what went through your heart and the word, how it helped you there. Anyway, but that Friday morning, the doctors came and we had to explain to the doctors what's going on, and that I have brain tumors and I've gone into a coma, and that they need to please see if they can do something for me. And they then pushed me back to do a CT scan of the brain, and I'll put up an image of the CT scan for the viewers. What happened is the scan that was 1.5 or 2 centimeters, I beg your pardon, the tumors that were 1.5 or 2 centimeters big had now grown to 7 centimeters. And basically there was bleeding inside the tumor. The second tumor had slipped underneath it, and that tumor had pushed the whole midline of the brain that we have running down the center, pushed the whole midline of the brain out, and that was what was causing the tremendous headaches. And the pressure in the brain had caused me to lose my eyesight. Now, tumors obviously eat into the meat of whatever it is, like the brain. So when you go for a tumor removal, they have to cut out the brain tissue to get the tumor out. So when the doctor saw that, and I forget his name now, which doctor was it?
Dr. Taylor, he was a professor at the hospital, because it's an academic hospital. So they've got professors which are overseeing, and then they've got student doctors which are busy training up as neurosurgeons. So he was in charge of a group of student doctors, and one of the student doctors took him the scans, and then he made the decision that operation is needed immediately.
Yeah, basically they pushed all the other patients out for the day because of the urgency. They realized that I was 12 hours from death because of the expansion in the brain. There was just nothing, that they had to cut out the tumors. So they pushed out the other patients. I was wheeled into theatre, and a couple of hours later I came out of theatre, and a miracle had happened in that period, another miracle. And that is that when they cut open the brain, and I'll show also the picture, you can see the incision on the back of the head. They literally flip open the skin, and then they drill 4 holes, and they take like a little jigsaw, through the bone, and they take out the bone. When they took out that little plate bone thing to have a look inside, what they found is that the tumors had separated themselves from the brain.
Sure.
Which is, with melanoma, it sometimes happens, very rarely. But in this case, it was phenomenal because of the size and because of the aggression of it. And literally, they could scoop it out like you can scoop an egg out of egg white or an egg out of its shell. That's what they could scoop it out, and that they then sent for a biopsy. There was one area of the brain that they used like electricity to fry, just to make sure that it doesn't grow back again. But they said it's an absolute miracle, because the tumors had separated themselves in sort of a white milky substance, and they were able to just take them up, close it up again, fill everything up, put the plates in place, and send me to intensive care. And I was, when did I wake up? Was it the Saturday?
Yes.
Saturday morning I woke up. They kept me under sedation for the whole day. And Saturday morning when I woke up with this pipe in my throat. It was the most horrendous thing. I could hardly breathe. They obviously leave that in case they need to reconnect it. And the nurses came and removed that. And I sat up in my bed. And they said, no, you must lie down, you must lie down. I said, I don't feel like lying down. And I looked, and all of a sudden I realized I could see.
Amen.
It was the most fantastic thing. It was the most wonderful experience. I couldn't see. So now you can't read, you can't drive, you can't walk. You used to be able to see, and boom, you've gone blind.
Sure.
You've got this 20% vision up in the top left corner. And when you wake up, all of a sudden, you look around and you can see the whole ward, you can see the nurses. It was just the most fantastic opportunity to praise the Lord.
And you're still there to tell the story.
Yeah.
Isn't that a miracle on its own?
This is a month later. I'm supposed to be coming close to the 6-week mark. And that aggression is what they were talking about. That's why they said probably 6 weeks. But the aggression of the tumor, meaning that it had grown from so small to so huge in that short period of time. Anyway, I was lying there in the hospital, and I was looking around me, and I saw all these people, and they were so sick, and they were in intensive care. It was in the neurosurgical intensive care ward. Everyone had brain surgery that was there, and it was the most wonderful thing. I was in my heart, I was singing praises to the Lord and just glorifying Him. And then I thought, but wow, what an opportunity. And I don't even know who they are, but I said, Lord, whoever that is and whatever's wrong with them, please help and bless. And I started to pray for every single person in the unit. And I spent the entire day just praying.
Amen.
And then when my family arrived that afternoon, I was sitting straight up in the bed, and I was smiling, and I could see, and it was the most fantastic thing. And the nurses was just trying to get me to lie down and be calm, and I just wanted to get up. And
I think the seeing is the one thing, but you also had tremendous pain. I think the pain that you went through was quite intense.
Amazingly, yes and no. When I came, beforehand there was enormous pain, but when I came out of the surgery, it was like I had a new life. As if something had happened which I cannot explain in words. And that's one thing I must just bring up. In my previous interview, I probably didn't highlight it correctly in the Afrikaans interview, and a lot of the people in the medical fraternity got very, very cross with me because I didn't explain their role as well. You see, we that believe in the health message don't often understand how does medicine fit in, because the health message often contradicts chemical drugs. And we can go into the whole chemo thing just now. But my decision was, when I was diagnosed, Rieta and I discussed it for many hours, and then I made the final decision, I will not go for chemo, I will not go for radiation, and if necessary and if possible, I will not go for surgery. Because those are the three options that medical science gives you. But science and medicine is necessary when there's an emergency. If you've broken your leg, or if you have a burst appendix, taking herbs ain't going to help much. If you have a brain tumor that's going to kill you within 12 hours, best you're going to have it cut out, because it can save your life. So medical science saved my life. And I can say that with my hand on the Bible, no problem. But after that, they tried to push me into chemotherapy and into radiation. And we've had major, major pressure to go for that, which we didn't do. And Rieta then can explain the treatments that we started, etc. But from there, it was the diagnosis that took place, that there was a problem with the scans on the September 11th, and this was the 3rd of October that I was operated, and I sat up in bed. I was released from hospital 3 days later, 3 days after the surgery. On the Monday, actually on Sunday, the nurse came, and she was into the intensive care unit and was looking around for who's the strongest to move that person out. So, because there was another person that needed to come into intensive care. And most of the people had been there 10 days or 2 weeks. And she looked around the ward, and there I was sitting straight up in my bed, and she said, first in, first out, you're the strongest. So, and I was moved from the intensive care ward to the high care, and that was fantastic, because from high care on Monday the doctor walked past. I was at that stage walking around the ward already and speaking to the people, and finding out how they're doing. And the doctor said, "What on earth are you doing in hospital? Please go home." And that was 3 days later, and it was wonderful for me to see the truth that's in Daniel 1, because Daniel 1 explains, if you change especially your diet, but your will to the will of the Lord, you can live a life that's 10 times better. And the other patients in the ward literally were there for 30 days. Brain surgery they estimated you're going to be there for 25 to 35 days. So most of them were there for a month. And 3 days later, I was released. But anyway, when they took the tumor out of the brain, they sent it for tests. And now the tests normally take 3 days, 4 days to come back. And after a week, there was no answer. And after a second week, there was no answer. And 2.5 weeks later, we finally got the results back. They had been testing and testing and retesting because they came up with an answer, or they came up with a type of cancer which was so ridiculous and so rare that they actually didn't believe it. And what it was is it's melanoma, which is skin cancer. But instead of it coming out on the skin, because the skin is an organ, it's part of your body. Instead of the skin cancer coming out on the skin, it actually had gone into the body and had attacked the adrenal glands. So I have a type of cancer that's called adrenal melanoma, which is extremely rare, and because of its association to the adrenal glands and the adrenal system, it's violently vicious. It is basically one of the most vicious types of cancers that you can have. And they had just taken out the 2 on the brain. They obviously hadn't taken out the other 5. So their prognosis of 6 weeks to 6 months basically stayed the same. At least now they could identify what type of cancer it was. But with melanoma, it was adrenal melanoma. I mean, that was even worse news. When we went to the oncologist, do you remember? When we visited with the oncologist, he basically said to us, there's nothing that science can do. There's one type of chemo that they said might work, and that was a chemo called DTIC. Now, I don't know what the term is, but it's called DTIC. Anyway, and he said this might work, and I said, well, what does it mean it might work? He said, well, might work means that it might shrink one of the tumors for a short period of time. I said, and then? He says, well, no, then it's going to grow much bigger again. I said, well, what's the use of that? He said, literally, and he was a good man, Dr. Parker, a very good man. He says, to be honest with you, science cannot help you. There's nothing that we have that can help you. You have a death sentence, and you've only got a period of time, a short period of time to live, and whether you go for treatment or whether you don't go for treatment, it won't make any difference to our prognosis. Yeah, and that was wonderful confirmation, because we had so much pressure to go for chemo that when he told us that and they realized what type of cancer it was, I could then say, we're still not going to go for chemo. And all of a sudden the people could back off and say, well, okay, now we understand. But that wasn't the reason why we didn't go for chemo and radiation.
I think it's very important that you clarify this point, because there has been some fierce criticism,
Yes.
Worldwide, when people heard that you're not taking the option of chemotherapy.
Yes.
And I'm glad that you actually explained that to our viewers, why you made that decision.
Yeah, I think maybe you can give some better background to that.
Well, chemotherapy is a drug that was developed during the wartime, and it's a biochemist? What's the word? I think it's a biochemistry warfare. So
Biochemical warfare product.
yes, that's right. So it doesn't make sense. Why will you use a product like that? Basically what chemotherapy does, it suppresses your immune system, it kills down everything, and then it hopes that the immune system that it's suppressed will be strong enough to carry you through. And we made the decision also after, when we went to speak to Dr. Parker, he gave us a list, and he was very honest, which I really appreciated of him. He went through, he said, these are all the symptoms that you will experience from using chemotherapy. And that is anything from deafness, blindness, stomach problems for ever and ever afterwards. It's terrible, and we just decided that our bodies are a temple, and if it's a temple, we cannot with a clear conscience put anything in it, even if it's something that's supposed to be saving your life. We cannot put something in there that is going to destroy the very mechanism that the Lord implanted in us to help your body to heal, and
which is the immune system.
Which is your immune system, and to get it restored back to the way the Lord created it. And that's basically been the main reason why we decided from the start that this is not going to be an option for us. So.
Rieta, now at this stage, a huge responsibility rested on your shoulders. Your life has just been turned upside down. You've got two gorgeous little children. You need to be mom to them as well. You've got a husband that is now diagnosed with terminal cancer. And at the same time, you're trying to sort through all your emotions and anxiety that you're feeling around this challenge that has been handed to you. But a very important aspect that I know that came out of this for you was the fact that you had one goal, and that was to do your utmost to help Mark to get to the point of healing with the Lord's guidance through everything that the Lord has given us from a health message point of view. Can you maybe just paint a little bit of a picture for us? What was going through your mind, and then how did you start approaching this whole healing process to assist Mark?
It's very difficult, like Mark said earlier, to explain to somebody what goes through your mind. I just know that for me, I could not accept that he would die. I knew in my heart that the Lord has called us for a purpose. And I knew that that purpose hasn't been finished yet. It hasn't been outlived yet. And I could not accept the fact that he would die from this. And with that, I knew in my heart that the Lord has, when he created this earth, he has given us a health message. And this health message was re-embodied again since the church started in the 1800s. And unfortunately, it died down quite a lot. But the Lord showed it to us when we became part of the church in 2005. And he really ignited a fire in my heart for this. And sometimes it's very difficult to stay balanced in this, and I've got a tendency to lean over to the very puristic side of this thing.
They call it fanaticism.
But yeah, I can actually say that I'm very fanatical.
But we love your enthusiasm, by the way, Rieta.
I really want the Lord's name to be glorified through this. And my whole viewpoint on this is that the Lord has created something the day that he created the earth, the days that he created the earth. He created something that will help people that has got cancer today in our age. He created something then already that will help people with AIDS today. He made provision for everything. He did not create the perfect earth and Adam and Eve stated it and then it deteriorated and it's not just tough luck for us. That's not what he did. He created something then for us to use now. We just don't have the knowledge what it is. So for me the whole process was a very deep process in studying. I had to go through a lot of material in a very short time to find the right answers, and I still don't have all the answers. You have to constantly search and search and search and pray and pray and pray and ask the Lord to please guide you. For instance, a while ago Mark started to develop a lot of diarrhea and nothing could stop it. No charcoal, which is like everybody knows charcoal stops diarrhea. It didn't stop it.
Okay, now let's just explain very quickly for those people who might be listening right now, Rieta, and they're picturing the charcoal that they've got their little, fire going with maybe a few chops on that. That's not the charcoal you're talking about. Just clarify that.
It's called activated medical charcoal. So it's a powdery substance, and you use that to draw poisons out of your body.
All right, and you get that at the health store?
At health stores, at chemists,
Wonderful.
hospitals, yeah.
Okay, so for our viewers, please do not use your briquettes that you're frying your meat outside on. Thank you.
So none of the trusted things was able to stop it. And we begged the Lord to show us where to go from there, what to do. And with that, Mark started to cough up blood, which is a very scary thing to see your husband going through. And eventually he landed up in the hospital here because he was completely dehydrated and nothing we did could turn that around. And then
Not even the hospital, even their drugs didn't work.
Not even their drugs worked to...
Something was going on in the body that nothing could stop the diarrhea. It was vicious.
So eventually somebody from America was here on a lecture course, and through someone else he sent a message, we should try some essential oil drops that you make a tea from it. And we did it and it stopped. And it took someone from another country to get the message through, but we've been praying and praying earnestly that the Lord will tell us what to do. And he did, and it was able to stop, which is wonderful. And that's been the whole process that we've been through. If you go back when Mark had his surgery, before that time we decided to, we really want to include our church, and our church has got a couple of lifestyle centers in South Africa, and the one that's doing the training for people to start a lifestyle center, Be Free, we really wanted to incorporate them and another ministry called Macarios to work together, that we can have a big pool of information and work together to get answers for what we need to do. So we went through to see them, and from there we went to IJsselfontein, and there Mark spent, we worked out about 6 weeks that we were there all in all. And then it was constantly questions, because you have to make sure all the time, firstly, that the information you get is correct, that it's backed up by biblical principles, that it's backed up by spirit of prophecy, which is very important for us. If you can't prove a treatment or a method or a medicine or a herbal medicine, whatever, on those things, you can't use it. It's not meant for us to be used. So all the time you had to make sure, are you making the right decisions? And I think for me that was one of the hardest experiences I had to go through, is to have the peace that when you've made a decision to take a specific route, that you have peace in your heart to take that route and do it with confidence and know that the Lord has led you to make that decision. Even with his surgery, beforehand we spoke that if it's an option, we would try to avoid it. And at that point, I arrived in IJsselfontein the Wednesday evening late, and during then and till Thursday evening, I was wrestling with myself. So, what is the right decision? If I take him, will it, because he couldn't assist me at all in any decision making, will it be what he wanted? Will it be the best thing for him? You know, all these questions that you ask yourself. And then also, is that what the Lord wants? Or does the Lord want you to not do it and see whether the Lord is going to perform a miracle? So it's very difficult to discern where you make a decision and where real faith steps in, and to know which one is which. So that was very hard for me. But the Lord has, through everything, He's just shown us all the way. And even sometimes when we made the wrong decisions, He gave us the grace of time to be able to correct the decision. For instance, we discovered now the normal method of treating cancer would be heat treatments, water therapy, and you use a lot of heat.
And just by the way, sorry to interrupt you, there's a picture which will show the audience of me sitting in the steam box.
Yes.
And also of me in the sweat bed. And those are the type of heat treatments that we use to get extra heat into the body, what the heat treatment does. Just explain the heat treatment, why that's good for cancer. Normally why?
Yes. The body, when you have heat treatments, and usually you combine it with heat and cold, so that activates the immune system. It helps your body to create more white blood cells, which obviously then goes and attacks the cancer. It helps to open up pores to get the poisons out of your body. It increases your metabolism. So that's why heat treatments are very important in cancer treatments. People would focus on steam saunas, they would do fever baths, they would do Russian steam baths. Those are all different types of procedures that you can go through. And that's what we did religiously. And we realized that after, when was it? December, we were very religiously doing it almost every single day. And we realized that Mark's strength is really going down, and it's going down rapidly to a point, I think it was about the 6th or 7th of January, where Mark was really, really weak and he was in a lot of pain. And we decided to slow down on that.
Well, I just couldn't go for the treatments. I couldn't get out of bed.
Yes, yes. So we learned recently, because we know that the Lord has given water therapy for us to use. And we were asking, Lord, what is then the right way? If this, which is the old trusted way, is not the right way, show us then you must have created a better way, which we're just not aware of. And out of the blue, 2 or 3 weeks ago, we received a phone call from somebody that we've known long ago, and she's immigrated to Canada. And she phoned and said, listen, for adrenal melanoma, you're not allowed to use heat. And when she explained it to us, it was like, we should have thought about it long ago, but we didn't realize it.
Because the body is trying to react to the heat, and it's a fight or flight situation, so your body needs to create adrenaline, and my adrenal glands are so messed up that it can't create the adrenaline, and it's messing up. So the heat was actually completely inverse. Normally you would use heat treatments. In this case, we were not supposed to use heat treatments.
But I think, speaking of heat, I just want to say for the record that besides the fact that it's extremely hot in Ladysmith, that is obviously part of the cancer.
Yes,
My
my hands are ice cold, but my body, I sweat, as you can see, profusely, and I apologize. I've got no way of controlling it. But that's the whole, the way the Lord has led us, and carry on with the. But just wanted to explain about the adrenals having to pump adrenaline.
Yeah. So, and with that, the Lord has also opened up another method that it's called pale pour. Now, I've never heard of this before until recently, and I got the most wonderful book from overseas called Water Therapy by Vance Farrell. And it's just fantastic how he explains the therapies and how to do it, what the results are that you receive from each therapy. But we realized that if you have a pouring action of different water temperatures, you start with a medium warm water, and then you cool it down, and then another third session where the water is not ice cold, but it's quite cool already, that you pour directly onto the infected area. For his case will be the adrenal glands. It stimulates, and it is a tonic effect on the adrenal glands, but it doesn't cause it to overwork, which is exactly what we want. And I've tested it on myself, and it was so nice. I was standing in the shower, and we took the cap off, so it was like water pouring, and I put it on my spine, and it is such a wonderful, relaxing effect. So the Lord leads us in different ways all the time. Another example was when Mark started to have this terrible pain over December. We realized that we will have to go to the point where we start to use medication to control the pain. And that was really a difficult thing for me, because I don't even have a Disprin in my house. And I'm actually fanatical about that. I do not want to use chemical medicines, because most of the times it breaks down your immune system, and we cannot allow his immune system to be broken
That's
down.
the one thing that will save my life is the immune system.
Yeah, so we cannot allow anything in that will damage it at this point. And I was just praying profusely, Lord, you have to show me. There isn't an option if you want to, if it's your will, you have to show me. And I was getting very desperate for an answer, and it was like there was just dead silence. There was nothing. And eventually it got so bad where we decided, okay, Mark has to start doing something.
The pain was just huge.
Yeah, so we've got a doctor friend who put a prescription in for Mark for a product, what do you call it again? Opioid.
Opioid. Yeah, I don't know what the
Opioid,
name
yeah.
was, but it was an opioid.
Yeah, which is like morphine. It's just not on the morphine
As
level
strong,
yet.
yeah.
It's still a bit down. So he prescribed that, and Mark got it at our local pharmacy. And he started taking it the first night, but up to then for months he hasn't slept because the pain keeps him awake at night. And the first night he slept very well. He didn't wake up once. The second night he slept well, not as well. And the third night he didn't sleep. And during the day he couldn't keep in any food. He couldn't eat basically. Nothing that we did was staying in, so nothing was of benefit to his body.
I was walking in circles because I was all drunk, and my
no.
right leg wouldn't work. So I was like this limping, one-awed person, trying to figure out, okay, the door's over there.
Yeah.
And that was taking 1 pill per day.
And keeping in mind that you need to bend down for most of those doorposts, Mark,
No,
that
yeah.
must have been quite a challenge.
So that was the result of having those chemicals.
Yeah, so I just prayed and I said, Lord, please help me. And it was so funny.
But I made the decision there that on the 4th day, I said, I will not take it, even if I have to die from the pain. Because one thing that's remained with us is from the beginning, and I just want to bring this in because I forgot to bring it in just now. When we were, the September 11th, the one text that stood out immediately was, even though he slay me, yet will I serve him. And that's been my motto all the way through. And I said, Lord, even if you slay me through pain, I will not take that rubbish because it's going to kill me anyway. So even though you slay me.
So I remember Mark went the afternoon, he actually phoned the pharmacist and said, listen, I really need this prescription now. So the pharmacist went to open up for him. And when he left, it was like I had this massive World War III going on inside me, because I just said, I cannot accept this, Lord. It's not possible that you didn't provide for Mark's pain at this point in time. I need you to give me an answer. And I went and I dug out all my books and I started reading anything that can help for pain. And it started with nice and mild herbs. I was at lemon balm and all these nice hops and things like that. And I said, no, it doesn't work. I've tried it. Lord, give me answers. And I got with things like marijuana. And I thought, uh-oh. And
Let's not go there.
yeah, and then poppies, which is opium. And I said, okay, no, Lord, this is not the answer I'm looking
You get
for.
good herbs and you get bad herbs.
I said, Lord, how can we tell people that Mark is using poppies to help with his pain? And then he goes, oh, do. And then how can he afterwards go and preach your straight message? I said, that's not acceptable. I want the right answer. And I remember the Monday evening when Mark decided that he won't take the chemical drugs anymore. We called a couple of people in and we were sitting and just throwing around ideas to see if we can come up with something. And somebody mentioned, why don't you try willow bark? And I was like, I don't know it. And
Specifically white willow bark.
yeah, I said, I don't know this. I've never heard of this herb before. So that night I almost didn't sleep. I was willow barking through my head the whole night. And the next morning, 5 o'clock, I got up and I took my books out and I was just doing research and I was on the internet. And I just said to the Lord, well, I don't know if it will work or not, but I believe that you sent me this answer, but we're going to do it.
And that's what I made what from?
Aspirin. Aspirin is actually the chemical that they derived from the white willow bark. That's how they came on aspirin, yeah. So
Originally.
it is an analgesic painkiller. That's what the purpose of it is. So we were phoning around and saying, where are we going to find willow bark in the Karoo, you know? And one of our friends, she's a botanist, and I phoned her and I said, listen, do you know anything about it? And she says, yeah, she's got. Do I want? I said, yes, please. And I was in my car and off to Barrydale, and I went to fetch it, and she showed me how to use it. And she said to me, I said, but this stuff doesn't taste very nicely, you know, it's quite bitter. And she showed me how to put it in capsules, and she gave me capsules, and that evening Mark started on that, and it made such a difference. He was able to sleep because one of the properties of the willow bark is that it's a mild sedative. And what also was brilliant for me is because of the cancer, it does affect your digestive system. And also because of the chemical drug that he took, the effect that it had on his digestive system, the willow bark absolutely enhances your digestive system. It helps to digest food better. It strengthens your digestive system. It's a tonic effect on your digestive system. So here comes this herb which the Lord did create 6,000 years ago, and it strengthens everything that we've been worried about. And it's been a miracle. It's helped Mark so much. And since then we've used it to the maximum limit that you can use it whenever Mark has got pain. And there's been weeks where he maybe takes once a day. Some days he didn't take anything because the pain levels have just dropped almost completely. So the Lord really comes through time and again if you truly seek His real answer, not an answer that you want to hear, but His real answer. He comes through every single time.
I have to ask a question. What has kept you alive up to this point?
My wife has kept me alive. Without her, I wouldn't have made it. She's been incredible. I'm honored to have her as a wife, and she's got an incredible character that, as you can hear, she doesn't let go. You know, it's amazing. In this research that she's been doing, one of the things that she realized is with cancer you often have to have enemas. Excuse me. Because the system is blocked. Like as an example, now for probably the last 3 months, I haven't had probably a proper bowel movement. I know this sounds funny, like it's going all over the world on DVD. But there's a lot of people that are battling with cancer, and I'm just going to be honest.
Absolutely.
When you have cancer, everything stops working. Well, not everything, but almost everything stops working. And the cancer in the bowel area, I have lymphoma now as well, which means that the cancer has spread into the lymph glands. And there's 2 or 3 or probably 4 nodes that have come together and formed a big ball. And it's pushing the bowel closed, which means that the food, when I eat, it sits up here, and it can't get through. It can't go through the system. And I haven't been able to go for 3 months properly to the loo. And Rieta, it's very funny actually. In this character that she has, I will not let go. She knows in the back of her mind that enemas are very good, especially in the final stages of cancer, to turn people around and to still save their lives. And here in our area we have an auction once a month, and at this auction all the farmers, and it's a big gathering of the whole community, goes to this auction. And she walks through. I was too weak to be there at the time, but she walks through and she sees that's interesting, and that's interesting. And there she finds this enema. And this enema, it's still the old, what do you call that, enamel? The old enamel sort of bucket thing. And it's got the hole where you hook the wire and this little spout and then rubber, it's all torn and whatever. And when they go through this auction, eventually, now it's a big laughing stock for the whole community that there's an enema up for auction. I mean, who's going to buy a 100-year-old enema? You don't know who's used the thing, you know what I mean?
And everybody's probably watching who's going to be buying it.
Yeah. And Rita says, she starts bidding for it. And eventually she buys this enema. I don't know, it was some ridiculous price because no one else wanted it. But it was something like that. I didn't know at the time, because that was about 3 months ago, maybe 4 months ago that Rita bought it. But 2-3 weeks after that, my bowels blocked up. And for the last 3 months, I have had a daily enema. If it's not, sometimes it's 3 enemas a day. I can actually, I'm now starting to understand what my body's telling me, and I can feel I need to go now, or I need to go later. And I have up to 3 enemas a day just to get the stuff out. So the enema has kept me alive. Without the enema, those toxins have to come out. Everything that's in your system is being flushed through your urinary and through your excretory organs, and you have to get rid of that, and if you don't, you're going to die. So I would say, what has kept me alive? It's been my wife. She's been incredible, and were the roles reversed, I don't know whether I would have been able to do what she did. She's been amazing, she's been incredible, and I will thank her through eternity for what she's done for me. In 3 days' time, I'm at the 6 months limit. And I'm stronger now than I have been for months and months and months.
Amen.
And it's been, in the last 3 weeks, since we've stopped the heat treatments, etc., I've just started getting stronger and stronger and stronger. Yesterday I was at church for the first time for both sessions. First time in 6 months.
I was so happy to see you there.
Last night I was playing cello and just having such fun singing with the people. And it was just so amazing. And the strength that I had was incredible. And so, along with what my wife has done and her relentless desire to not let go, it's been the other things, like it's been the white willow bark and the associated phytodollar, which works together with that. And we'll put the formula on the screen for the people. And that and the enemas have been absolutely crucial to get the toxins out. And not coffee enemas, not carrot juice enemas, not anything, just warm water. Just to go in, loosen up the stuff and let it come out.
Amazing.
It's been absolutely incredible.
Fantastic. I just want to say one thing. I think it's so important to keep in mind that you've got 2 gorgeous little children at home, Lauren and Jonathan. And I know that through this whole process of dealing with cancer, the Lord nearly forced you, Mark, to take that time off that you didn't allow yourself, in the beginning. Just very, very quickly, what has it been like for you to spend more time with your wife, to spend more time with your children?
It's been very hard because it's wonderful to travel and to help people to understand the Word of God. It's the most fantastic experience. And it's been very hard, but it's been fantastic. I wouldn't have given up these last 6 months for anything, cancer or no cancer. I didn't know that I didn't know my children. And I didn't know that I didn't know what my wife was going through. And going through with my children, with the battles that she had when I wasn't there. And now when we come out of this and we start the whole evangelistic process again, we're going to do it differently. Because we cannot allow that. Even with the Lord, everything has to be balanced. Even if you're working, especially if you're working for the Lord, your life must be balanced. And I wasn't. I was on fire and I was running all over the world. And the Lord pulled my handbrake up and gave me another opportunity. But it's been wonderful, but it's also been hard because I had to learn again that I'm actually nobody. And the Lord can do it with somebody else if He wants to. And but that's in itself has been an opportunity, because the DVDs are doing an incredible work all over the world, and the TV channel is doing an incredible work, and there's so many things that are happening now where I've stepped back and I've had to literally let go and say, okay, the Lord must do it.
Mark, in lieu of what you just mentioned regarding the network, has that been your biggest point of contact with people out there in terms of the support that they have provided you with?
Well, that's been the most amazing thing, I think, for both of us. Is it's been, besides the resistance and the pressure that we've got from certain areas, the cross-denomination reaction and support worldwide that has happened has been something that we didn't expect. And it's gone through churches and religions that people have realized that the Lord is doing something special. It's almost like He's touching people in all different areas of the world with this cancer, and as a result people have contacted us directly and have asked us, we would like to support and help. Obviously we've had extra costs that have come through as a result of having to do the various things and having to get the various treatments, etc. And not only the treatments but the medications, or whatever you want to call them. There have been extra costs, so people have said, can we help you directly with that? And other people have said, how can we help you spread the message? And that's what we've done, is we've said to people, obviously we're very grateful for those that want to help us directly, and every cent is deeply appreciated. But I want to just give a little bit of background about the ministry as well. Rieta and I, when we accepted Christianity, and I realized that my calling was to go and preach against and explain to the occultists why occultism is not what it is, and not only occultism but other areas as well, we realized that so many people have got so many questions that we needed to find or create a resource base where people could find the answers to the difficult questions. I didn't want to sit in somebody's house and say, sorry, I don't understand the Bible. Please, let's just have a discussion without using the Bible. I want people to ask difficult questions, and I want them to get answers to those difficult questions, because I had very difficult questions. And we started a ministry called Home Base, just Rieta and myself, which was the base, or is the base, where you can find the information on how to get home, eternal home, Home Base. And that was what we started, and it grew for 3 years. And during that period I traveled and I recorded the DVDs, and those DVDs, our policy is on all of our recordings, on everything that I record, it is that there's no copyright. That's difficult when you go to other places who put copyright on, and we've come to certain agreements with people around the world. But wherever possible, we have no copyright on anything that we record. So the DVDs have traveled literally all over the world, and they have spread the message more than I could have ever done on my own. And we're getting messages from the Philippines and the Solomon Islands and Tobago and Russia and Benin and Ireland and Canada and Australia, and the messages that are the DVDs have traveled all over the world. So they've done a huge work where I couldn't have done that work. Not only that, I've had on my heart for a long time the idea that, well, let me explain it this way. I've been praying for about 2 years to how the Lord must show me how I can reach 1 billion souls. That's been my goal. My target is 1 billion souls. How can I reach 1 billion souls? Now I know that sounds ridiculous, But if you think how many souls Paul has reached, 1 billion souls is probably shooting too low. And I've asked, how can I reach 1 billion souls? And the only way to do that is via satellite and via live television and via satellite television, etc. So I had that on my heart for about 2 years already, and then last year, it so happened that our ministry, the various things changed and grew, that our ministry was able to start up its own satellite, 24-hour a day, 7-day a week satellite TV channel. And it literally is pumping out day and night these truths. Now at the moment our satellite footprint includes the entire Africa, Madagascar and the whole of Europe. But there are new developments on the horizon, further developments. We're looking at mobile uplinks. In other words, getting those little buses with the satellites on top so that we can do live events. We're looking at putting up our own satellite base stations to have, that we don't have to use other people's mechanisms for the uplink to the satellite. Because all of that costs money, we can rather invest that in this. Then there's the further development of another channel specifically for other languages, not only South African languages, but Southern Africa and African languages that they don't have access to. They've only got access to English and Afrikaans at the moment. So we're looking at another channel. And over and above that, this initial channel, we're looking at spreading that worldwide. Now, the finances that needs to go into that is enormous. And I don't know who's going to be watching these DVDs, but the request that I have is that if somebody wants to get involved, there's two options. Either you can support us personally, which is appreciated, but the bigger need and the greater need is, and my desire is to spread the Lord's messages. So if you know of people, or if maybe you have a camera company and you want to donate cameras, please contact edenlifeministries.co.za. Or maybe there's somebody that can assist us with lighting or mixers or satellite dishes, or people want to give a donation. It doesn't have to be a huge donation. You know, some people give 100 Rand a month. Every cent counts. By the way, for 100 Rand in dollar terms, that's about $10. But every cent counts. And when we put it all together, it allows us to then spread the gospel. Even though I've had my personal handbrake pulled up, the messages are traveling now to more people than I've ever done before.
Amen.
So the support has been phenomenal. But the ministry is speeding up. It started with Rieta and myself, about 2 people. Well, it started with us 2. And it's now, what are we, around 25, 30 people already? And it's just growing and growing and growing. And we see the Lord's leading in His hand, and we are not prepared to stand in His way, but rather be used as a tool in His purpose. So, yeah, those are the 2 options. Support us financially, directly. And if they're interested to know how to do that, they can email info@edenlifeministries.co.za and ask for our contact details. And again, the same, info@edenlifeministries.co.za. People that want to support the ministry to spread the messages worldwide. That would be my heart's desire, yes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mark. Now, Rieta, to get back to the treatments, I want you just to run through a typical day in the Woodman household. Just what do you do, you know, food-wise, routine-wise? Just paint a picture for us.
Yeah, it's quite a challenge to be able to fit everything in, especially with 2 little kids.
And the sick husband.
Yeah, but that's not the end of the world. The little kids can keep you quite busy, and they obviously want a lot of attention for themselves. So usually a typical day would be I get up around 5 o'clock and I do my morning worship, and then I start with juices. So the first thing I usually do is I make lemon juice. I take the whole peel, everything, the whole lemon, and just scrub the skin clean, and then I would juice the whole lemon, and it makes like a thick, yellowy, almost like there's some oil part of it. And then I give that to Mark diluted in a glass of water. That would be his first juice for the day. What we also do is green juices. Now, you can put anything in that, but it can be quite...
Anything that's green.
Yeah, and it can be quite vile, to say the least.
Now, why would you do the lemon juice? What does the lemon juice
The
do?
lemon juice is basically a clean out for your system. What happens when you sleep, obviously your body goes into a healing mode, where while you're resting, it's repairing everything that's gone wrong during the previous day, which means that a lot of toxins goes to your excretion organs, like your kidneys, and that usually causes your pH to drop quite low during the night. So you need to boost the excretion, and you also need to bring up your pH again for your body to function normally. And the lemon juice does both of those things together. So
Isn't it an acid?
yes, lemon juice is an acid, but when it goes into your body, it turns into an alkaline substance. And that's just the way the Lord created it. It's miraculous, actually. Another thing the lemon juice also does is to clean out your liver, especially. So it helps generally to clean out your system and to make your body more alkaline again. So that will be the first thing that he gets every morning. The second thing will be a green juice. That will be something, cabbage is very good for him at this point in time. Cancer and cabbage don't like each other. So any of your cruciferous vegetables like cabbage or broccoli, cauliflower, those type of things, that we'll put in the juice. Lettuce, green lettuce, even your dark red lettuce leaves. I put cucumber in. Cucumber is a diuretic, so it helps to get poisons out.
I've got a photograph for the people of the little Oscar juicer. It's actually a slow mastigating juicer. You get these ones that spin very quickly and they grate and they separate the juice from the pulp. But what happens with the fast spinning one is it oxidizes very, very quickly. The juice oxidizes, so it's not as healthy. The slow masticating juicer actually squeezes it and chews the pulp so that it puts the liquid out. So when you take a cabbage leaf, you put the whole leaf in and literally chews it and squeezes it out the bottom.
That will be the second thing that you will drink in the morning. Then I make about 5 kilos of carrots, and then I will juice all the carrots and put it in little 10-ounce, that's about 250 mils, little bottles, which I'll put in the fridge then for him during the day.
Is it that much? Is it 5 kilos?
Yes.
Aren't those half-kilo bags?
No, they about 750 to a kilo, depending.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, sure, I didn't realize it was that much.
Yeah. And the carrot juice he would drink at intervals during the day. He usually takes about 5 of those bottles a day, which is just over a liter that he would drink. With the carrot juice, we give him barley green. We've got a special mixture with barley green, wheatgrass, rosehip, which is your natural form of vitamin C. And it's also got fulvic acid in it. Now, that's a whole scientific thing on that. But that helps to also balance the mineral levels in your body. And intestinal flora. So it's quite a balanced barley green, and he would take that 4 times a day as well. The barley green is excellent. It's been wonderful. It just boosts his energy levels. It boosts his immune system.
It doesn't taste wonderful, but
I can just imagine.
It's very good stuff.
Yeah. And
I take it with the juice rather than with water, because you can't get it in with water. It's just...
They say good medicine normally never, is always a vile taste.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's never been a truer word in this case.
Yeah. And
But also, before you let me come out of the bedroom,
that's another thing he
I
has
have
to
a very strict sergeant major.
Ah.
he has to drink about 1 liter of water. Another thing, during the night when you sleep, your body dehydrates because it cleanses the body, and all that liquid goes to your excretion organs like your kidney. The rest of your body has got very low water levels, so we need to boost these hydration levels quite a lot in the morning for his body's function to also normalize again.
So it's a litre of water, and then the lemon and the green. I have to have those 3 before I'm allowed out of the bedroom.
Sure.
And then after that's the carrot juices.
Yeah.
And obviously another litre and a half of water during the day.
Yeah. Yeah, we are aiming for about almost 4 liters of fluid intake every day. So I also make him 500 ml of herb mixture, tea mixture, which is red clover and stinging nettle, horsetail, yarrow, peppermint, chamomile and calendula, which are all mixed together.
I'll ask him on the editing team just to list them so that they're on the screen that the people can pause. Okay.
Yeah. And another 500 ml of tehibo or paudako tea, which is a herb that comes from South America, and it's also a bark, you know, and they grind it into a fine powder, and you make a tea that doesn't taste too badly. You
That's
can
not
actually,
a bad one,
yeah. But that is a very, very big cancer fighter. It's really a fantastic herb also. So that will be his liquid intake for the day. With that, he gets a glass, and in this glass there's turmeric, old turmeric that everybody uses in their cooking.
The capsules.
Yeah, we put it into capsules to make it easier to swallow. Turmeric has got a substance called curcumin, and that is a cancer fighter of note. Yeah, it reduces tumors and it fights cancer. It breaks cancer cells down. So he takes that 4 times a day, and it takes about a gram 4 times a day. Okay, the second thing that's in there is apricot. People have got a lot to say about apricots, whether you can use it. The medical term is vitamin B17. And laetrile, yes. And I know that in some countries it's actually forbidden. You're not allowed to take that. But we feel the Lord has created the apricot kernel. At this point, we are not using the vitamin B17 substance itself, but we're using apricot kernels. And because it's very bitter, it's difficult to chew and to swallow that. So what I do is I put it through my grinder, and I grind it fine into a powder, and then I also put it in capsules so Mark doesn't taste it. So in the beginning he was complaining like you cannot believe. He refused to take it.
I couldn't. It wasn't that I just wanted to refuse. I just couldn't. You have to take so many. When you got cancer, it's like you're so bombarded with bad tasting things. I just couldn't in the end. So we found a way to put it into capsule.
Yeah. I think you've actually been a very good patient. If I listen all the chat in the grapevine, because at the lifestyle center they say they put you through tremendous torture sometimes, and you never complain, Mark. So you know, if you complain about a bit of bitterness, that's okay.
Yeah, and then he also gets garlic. Garlic is a very good immune booster. It's a infection fighter. It's a fantastic substance that the Lord has created. There are various ways of taking garlic, and we've been fortunate enough to have been given a bottle of garlic juice. Now, it smells vile. When I open the fridge, you already get this garlic smell that's walking towards you. But it's fantastic. It's very powerful. So Mark takes about 15 garlic drops every day, 3 times a day, which is also very good for his immune system. Either in juice or in water. Yeah. Then we also take paudako or tehibo capsules. He takes that. That also is a very good substance to help for pain, especially cancer pain. It brings down the pain levels quite dramatically.
I think we must just recap the 3 things that helped me with my pain to bring it down from the ridiculous levels was the white willow bark 4 capsules. We grind it fine, we put it into capsules, 4 capsules, 4 times a day.
Okay.
Along with that is the powder arco, 2 capsules, 4 times a day, which we put into the capsules ourselves. And then that product called Phytodollar, which is a combination of 3 herbs, and that was the formula that we put on the screen earlier. But those 3, white willow bark, powder arco, and Phytodollar, have been the painkillers that have worked wonders.
Now, Mark also takes with his breakfast, he takes a couple of other herbs, milk thistle and dandelion, to support his liver, because your liver is taking the most strain in all of this, because it has to constantly clean out everything, the blood cells, everything goes through your liver, so your liver really gets hammered, especially also with treatments like the water therapies that we discussed earlier. Your liver really takes a hammering. So that's to support his liver. He also takes astragalus, which is a fantastic herb. It's got a list.
Drops, eh?
Yeah, in drops or capsules, doesn't matter. But it's got a list of properties from here to Cairo. It's fantastic. But it's especially good for cancer people with tumors in the lung.
And that's astragalus.
Yeah, astragalus. Yeah. Okay, those are basically the supplements and the herbs that he's using every day.
I just want to ask you, Rita, sorry, Mark. You mentioned when you started explaining about the juicing and the process that you go through early morning, you mentioned something about getting your body to be alkaline. Why is that important?
That's quite an interesting question, because previously we thought that, well, there is a theory that says the more alkaline your body is, the better it performs. There is it's been proven that your normal level should be between 7 and 7.5, your pH levels. But we've been finding that Mark's pH levels have been very high. Most of the times it was far over 7, sometimes it was over 8. And that didn't necessarily always make a difference to how he was feeling. So it is very critical that your body has the ability to balance. So in other words, the normal way it should be is in the morning, your body must be more acidic, which means that it has got the ability to excrete toxins. And then during the day, it must increase in alkalinity. So you will find that sometimes people can go up to 8 in their alkalinity during the day. But it has to, your body must be able to fluctuate. It mustn't be stable on one position from the beginning to the end, because then it means that the system doesn't work properly.
And also, cancer cannot live in an alkaline environment with good blood circulation. Mm-hmm. The more acidic your body is, the more open your system is to grow cancer. Cancer grows in an acidic environment, so you want to bring your pH level up towards 7. If you, excuse me, if you go to the pharmacy and you buy a little pH strip and you urinate on it, or you put it on your tongue and it reads 5 or 4, you're going to get into trouble. Even if you're not now, you will get into trouble.
Eventually.
You need to bring it up. And the barley green has helped me to bring my, that combination barley green has helped me to get my pH up and stable at that level.
So does it then mean that this diet that you are following and all the juicing and teas, etc., that it will be good for anybody to really follow that same type of regime?
Yes, I think it's critical, and that's why it's so important that we go back to Genesis to see how the Lord has created us and what He has given to us from the start, because Him being the designer knows exactly what His vehicle needs to perform peak performance all the time. So I wouldn't say it's important for a person to be using all the herbal supplements and things like that we're using at the point for Mark, but I think it's important that person will follow a very it's difficult to say strict, but I would say strict in the sense of the biblical principles of what you eat. And through that, you will prevent a whole lot of diseases. But it's, once again, like we discussed earlier, it's not just about diet. You have to follow the whole biblical principle. You have to live a lifestyle of new start, where every day is a new start to get your body to be whole. If you follow that, the Lord will help you and protect your body against diseases. But yeah, I think it's important that people understand that it's not just diet. It's important that you take the whole thing holistically. If you follow every single health principle, then yes, you are cutting out your chances for a lot of disease.
That's the point, is rather start while you're healthy and live your life that way to prevent the diseases than end up in my situation and you have to use those much more intensely to try and push the disease into remission. And it's a huge fight that we're going through at the moment. If we had, and we were living vegan lives, you know, close to vegan, if not completely plant-based, and yet we were still missing the point because we didn't have the full holistic picture.
Yeah, I think it's really important that people realize that it will make a massive difference to their health if they just start by changing their diet. But it doesn't. That is not the only answer. They have to do everything else.
So now I'll ask you about the day. What happens in a day? So the juices you've done, the supplements you've done. What about brekkie?
Yeah, breakfast. Basically, what our aim is for everything we eat to be as close to the natural form, like you pick it in your garden, so it must be on your table. That's what we're aiming for.
Whole foods eaten whole, basically.
Yeah, that's the motto. So we are trying to eat as much raw as we possibly can. Obviously, you can't eat bread raw, but we try and get into line with as much raw as possible. We actually, lately, we've decided, well, we're going to, for breakfast, have fruit salad and our grains, and then for lunch we'll have salad and we throw everything that we can throw in there, and maybe have some bread with it, whole bread that's baked either by us or by somebody that we know what they put into the bread. You know, so we're really trying to get back to the original thing with as little. Well, we don't put any additives in. We only use like Himalayan salt, Himalayan rock salt, or organic sea salt, where you know where the source is from, that it's not contaminated with heavy metals and things like that. Yeah. So we're trying to use things as naturally as possible. We try to avoid anything that's got preservatives in, colorants, all those type of things which man put in. We're trying to avoid those things and just try to do the things like the Lord has made it for us.
Breakfast is usually a couple of fruits. Then there's either a hot porridge or a muesli, and that would be a whole grain which Rita has cooked. And then after that, a slice of bread or something. That would be
avocado or tomato.
Yeah.
Pestos and
A nice big breakfast is the most important. It's going to get you through the rest of your day. We eat twice a day. I nibble on something in the evenings, usually a couple of grapes or a fruit or something, just because I'm in this situation. But we eat twice a day. We generally have our breakfast around 8 or 9 in the mornings, and then we have lunch at about 3 o'clock. It's a big lunch and it's a big breakfast, and that easily gets you through. I mean, we don't have to eat it all in the evenings.
Yeah, and we might have something like a baked potato or sweet potato.
This is not for lunch.
Yeah, for lunch. Or butternut. And then whatever we've got in the garden, we're trying to eat most of our things organically where it's possible. Obviously, with using 5 kilos of carrots every day, it's impossible to get it out of your own garden. And so that we have to buy, but we try to live out of our garden where we know what our soil conditions are and what we put and what we don't put into our garden.
Also just clarify the mixing of fruit and veg.
Yeah, that's very important. People don't realize how important that is. You cannot or you should not mix your fruit and vegetables at all. The digestive system cannot handle the two together. As soon, and this is something that we've known for a long time, but you don't always practice it because it's so nice to put some fruit in your salad, in your green salad, because it looks nice. Yeah, and it tastes nice, but your digestive tract cannot handle it. And we've noticed with Mark especially, everything being so sensitive, the moment we mix these two, that there's immediate pressure on his digestive system. His body can't handle it. And that's because he's sick, that we know the symptoms, but it's the same for us, for healthy people. The digestive time is different. So, for instance, your vegetables might take 5 hours to digest, and fruit only takes, because it's got a lot of water in it, only takes, say, 3 hours or 4 hours. So now you mix the two, and then something in your stomach will stay behind and it won't get digested properly, and there's a fermentation process that happens in your stomach, and that increases your acidity levels. So we stay completely clear of that. We do not mix any fruit and vegetables at all. Now, even that is a problem because there's quite an issue what is fruit and what is vegetables. We just follow the normal line of fruit is fruit like we know it, and vegetables is vegetables like we know it, So that's basically our eating habits as well.
There's a purpose behind this whole going healthy, eating healthy. And the first purpose, obviously, in the situation that you find yourself in right now, is to help Mark get well. But there's another additional reason that we all should follow in terms of what we eat. And that reason is to be able to have a clear mind. And it takes us back to our conversation where we started, and we you read some pieces for us, or quoted some pieces out of the Bible in terms of what God gave us a good diet to be. And Mark, I know that you are busy with quite a few things, even though you are ill, you are still busy actively doing work for the Lord. And I just want you to wrap up for us this whole concept of eating healthily and how that impacts and has an effect ultimately on all of us spreading God's word. Why is that such an important thing, and how is it affecting you to be able to spread God's word?
So now it all comes down to the final events of this world's history. In Revelation we find out about the mark of the beast being placed on the forehead and on the right hand of those that follow the beast or worship the beast. The forehead is the Lord's way of speaking about our seat of intelligence. The right hand is the Lord's way of describing your actions. If you are associated to the beast, or anything associated to the beast, your actions will show it. If you are living your life according to that which pleases the beast, it'll be in your thinking. The Lord is asking to write, He wants to write His name in your forehead and His laws in your heart. There's this competition between either the Lord's going to write in your forehead or the beast is going to write in your forehead. There's these two options. And at the end of time, what I call the full frontal attack is for the frontal lobe of humanity. God wants us, like it says, gird up the loins of your mind, protect your mind, and we need to renew the mind constantly with the Word of God, because the frontal lobe is a seat of intelligence. It's the way we communicate with God. If you have a clouded mind, if you're drinking Coke, if you're drinking coffee, if you're eating fudge and all types of sugary products, it messes up the mind, it clogs the mind, and you don't know that your mind is clogged. It's like having 2 beers and going for a drive. You don't know that you have a 70% greater chance of having an accident, even though according to science you're not drunk. The same with even if you are, or put it this way, if you are not eating healthily, you will not know that your frontal lobe is clogged. It's when you start eating healthily that you realize, man, I feel better, I'm sharper, the text words come to mind quicker. The brain is able to work better because it's looser. So,
okay, now this is radical. With other words, if I may just chip in very quickly, are you saying then that it has a direct impact on our relationship with the Lord?
Yes.
That can have an impact on our eternal life?
absolutely, because
it's that serious.
it's very serious. It's got to do with the final decisions that we will make. In Daniel 1, you have Daniel and his friends standing up and saying, we will not eat of the king's meat. We will not drink of the king's wines. We will not partake of his foods, in other words. In Daniel 2 and Daniel 3, you find out about what happens is the king builds an image, and he then says to all the nations, and he uses music to stimulate the nations, when you hear the sound of the flute and the lyre and the harp, etc., you will bow down to the image. The only people that didn't bow down was Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And why didn't they bow down? Because they had the clarity of mind to realize what was going on. The rest of the world bowed down. Now you have the antitype at the end of time. In Revelation, you've got the beast and you've got the image to the beast. There will be an image set up, and the whole world will be told they have to bow down to this image. And the Lord has given us the same diet to make sure that we have the same result. And most of the world is rejecting this, but this has a phenomenal result on whether you will or will not accept the mark of the beast at the end of time. And it's not a threat, it's a promise. And the Lord is saying, please, please, please come in line. Please understand. It doesn't have to do with meat eating. It doesn't have to do with, right, I'm better than someone else because I'm a plant-based eater and they are whatever. It's not about that. It's about our relationship with the Lord, clearing up your frontal lobe. Because Jesus said to his church, to his disciples, he said, be careful that you are not deceived. He didn't say, be careful that the world is not deceived. At the end of time, the church is going to be deceived because truth and error run so close to one another. So I'm working at the moment on a new series called The Loud Cry, the Message of Hope. And if the Lord helps me to finish it in time, it might be out towards the end of this year, 2010 if I can. But I'm working furiously on that at the moment. That and a book.
In balance, of course.
In balance, yes, because I'm getting my rest. But and I'm not allowed to leave in the mornings before I've had my juices, etc. But it's to explain that there's a loud cry going into the world. There is no time left, Sanal. There is no time left. You can see it in all the world's events around us. And the Lord is asking us, stop going to church. If church is a club, then leave it. If you don't want to go to church, if you want to go to church to be seen, then rather don't go to church. It's not about church. It's about Jesus and having a relationship with Him. And when you find that relationship and you find that your relationship is in line with the Word, then you can find a church that teaches the truth. Don't go and find what suits you and then look for a church that suits you. Find out where the truth is being taught and then go there. And you'll find out it's a very uncomfortable environment to be. But you'll find the truth there. And part of that message, it has to be a diet and an obedience message. Israel came out of Egypt, and as they were going to go into Canaan, 12 spies were sent into Canaan. And 2 of them, Caleb and Joshua, came back with what? McDonald's. No, they came back with grapes. The diet of the earthly Canaan. It was all rejected. At the end of time, we are Israel that are trying to come out of Egypt, preparing for the heavenly Canaan. And the Lord is asking us to be obedient, just like Israel had to be obedient, and have a diet message, just like Israel had a diet message. So God's people will be at the end of time, to be obedient to the commandments and have a diet message. It is critical and phenomenal, the religious impact and the spiritual impact that those 8 health laws have on the way you or I will be able to stand at the end of time.
Mark, thank you so much for that. I think that is the actual purpose of everything that we should be striving for, and ultimately the fight that you are fighting. But I know you've got such a passion, you know, to spread God's word, and everybody watching, you're very loved, and so are you, Rita. And I know that you want to give something back to our viewers. Rita, can you share with us what gift it is that you would like to give back?
We would like to play a song, and it's a very special song. And you know, when you go through something like this, you often feel like you're quite alone. And because no one else really understands what you feel and what you experience. So for us, the whole purpose of us going through this has been that when we're finished with this, someone else needs to be able to benefit. Someone else needs to be strengthened. Someone else needs to realize that the Lord is there no matter what, no matter how dark or how difficult, the Lord is there. I would like to first read a text word. It's in Hebrews 12, verse 11 and 12. Now, no chastening for the present seemeth to be joyous, but grievous. Nevertheless, afterward it yieldeth the peaceable fruit of righteousness unto them which are exercised thereby. Therefore lift up the hands which hang down, and the feeble knees, and make straight paths for your feet. Lest that which is lame be turned out of the way, but let it rather be healed. You know, and when you hear news like your husband has got cancer and it's terminal and it's 6 weeks left, your hands hang and your knees feel feeble. But the Lord says, no, the chastening that you're going through is grievous for the moment, but afterward it's going to be joyous. Afterwards there is going to be peaceable fruit of righteousness. And it must rather be for healing than to become lame. So we would like to tell people out there that the words of this song is very special. You never walk alone is the song's name. And it's just beautiful. It's a male choir that sings it, and the way they perform it really touches your heart. And I hope other people will also find peace and comfort when they listen to this.
What I would like to say is that we have had so much support and so much love shown to us that this hymn is a gift from Rita and myself back to the audience. But not only to those that have supported us, but also to you who are suffering with cancer, who are suffering with some debilitating disease, maybe an emotional concern, maybe a spiritual concern, maybe whatever it is. Please know, as we are walking through this, we have never walked alone, and neither do you. This is our gift to you. That's our gift to you. You will never walk alone. Though I lead you through the valley of the shadow of death. Remember, Jesus is our shepherd. And He leads us. That means He goes through there before you go through it. Rieta and I have a deep peace, an incredible peace that has come over us since we realized we're not walking alone. And we can see it in our children. We can see it in our environment. And brothers and sisters, friends, whoever you are, may that song, may that hymn be an encouragement to you. Wherever you are, fall on your knees, give your life to Christ and ask Him to help you, because you will never walk alone.
I want to thank you for being tuned in with this interview, and I trust that the Lord has blessed you even more than what you expected. We want to thank Mark and Rieta so much for being here with us. It's touched my heart. I'm feeling so full in my heart at the moment, because I can see how wonderful and powerful our Lord and Savior is. I also want to ask that if you want to follow up with how Mark is doing, please visit our website on www.edenlifeministries.co.za, and that should you want to know how it's going, that you follow only that route. There are many emails going around and SMSs, and we know that so many people are meaning so well, but we want to support Mark and Rieta, and we want to make sure that we do it in a positive manner. So come visit us, look at our website, and send us some mails if you want to have a chat with Mark, or if you've got certain questions. info@edenlifeministries.co.za. We'll be more than happy to provide you with information and to assist you through the help of the Holy Spirit to lead you closer to the Lord. Until next time, goodbye.
Dear friends, over the last few months and since recording this interview, there has been a marked deterioration in Mark's health. The cancer in the lymph system has spread much further, and now, along with the internal tumors, he has lymph tumors, lymphoma, all over his body. The internal tumors have also swelled, and he is experiencing an increase in discomfort and pain, and in most days not able to do as much as he had done before. Mark requested we put this note in at the end of the interview so he can be quoted directly. He says, "My wife and I have done everything we can to save my life. We have aligned ourselves as closely as we can to the health guidelines as taught in the Bible and the spirit of prophecy. And the fact that I am still alive bears witness that this health message is true. It seems, however, that although it has slowed it down, we are not beating the cancer, and it is now time to hand everything over to the Lord. The worse my situation gets, however, the more hope I have. I know that the Lord of the Bible is the God of the impossible. So the more impossible the situation, the more opportunity there is for Him to perform a miracle. If I ever Christ decides not to perform a miracle, then I still maintain that, though He slays me, yet will I trust in Him. Job 13 verses 15. Because Jesus Himself said, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you. Not as the world giveth, give I unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid." John 14 verse 27. My focus rests now more than ever in the hope of the second coming of Christ. Thank you, Mark Woodman.